photos are from a Holland America cruise in January of 2024. The day began bright and early as we were entering from the Atlantic before daylight, actually. The sun was coming up as we went under the Atlantic Bridge, which I found pretty fascinating. And we slowly worked our way into the first set of locks, guided by the little boats and pilots. And as we got into the locks, there were some steering ropes and other things. It was interesting to see how locks divided, the canal, I should say, divided into the new Aqua Clara locks, which are the newest ones. And unlike some of the other gates, these slide back and forth like pocket doors instead of opening like a gate on the older ones. But it was kind of like sitting in a bathtub and waiting for it to fill. And then once you got to a certain point, you went to the next lock. Finally, at Gatun Lake, we were able to get a glimpse of what was going on out there. The people who had shore excursions took the tenders over to the land, and that was where I made a mistake in not signing up for something. I had understood we were going to be doing some scenic cruising, which was not the case. We went through the locks and we stopped right here. Nothing to look at but the dam and some ships coming through, a bird or two now and then, and it was hot. Just as we were ready to go back, there was some kind of medical emergency and they had to take someone ashore to meet a waiting ambulance. So then we slowly made our way into the opening towards the gates, past what I guess is kind of a big deal, some kind of welcome center, viewing point. So that was kind of cool. But slowly we began to get back in, and I don't know if I mentioned, but the difference in levels is 85 feet from the Atlantic to Gatun Lake. And going back, it was interesting because we're looking down and it seemed like quite a short distance to the bridge, even though again it was 2.5 hours, but you could see all the locks because of being above them this time. So that was pretty cool. You could look over and see the retention ponds where they reuse some of the water, which makes this a more conservative set of locks. And you can sometimes see ships going by from the other channels, which was fun. By the way, these videos are at double speed because otherwise it would take forever to see them. But it was really pretty looking back that direction towards the bridge. I don't know why I was so fascinated with the Atlantic Bridge. Maybe because it was just out in the middle of nowhere, which is unusual. You expect it to be in a big city, and it's even smaller than the one an hour away from me in Charleston, South Carolina. But it was pretty, and I just realized it had been built in 2019. And then we're back in the Atlantic and headed towards Cologne, which was such an industrial port, I decided not to even get off the ship. I do find some of the container ships and the mechanics interesting. And the way we were tied up, people had to come in by boat to help out. There were a few birds floating around, but finally that day was over.